Hello, I'm Bill Fox, and this program is about East Brunswick. Tonight's topic is something that's very popular in our community, our library. And with me this evening to talk about the library are Jim Hess, representing the Board of Trustees of the East Brunswick Library, David Weil, who is Director of the Library, and Gail Disleski, who is President of the Friends of the Library. I'd like to start out, Jim, by asking you a little bit about the history of our library. I know that you've been involved for a very long time and from its very inception. Maybe you could tell us how our library came about.
Well, when we came to this town 30 years ago, there was about 7,000 people in the town, and the only library service was the Alice Appleby DeVoe Library out in the historic section of the town. And that was a small association library that had been put together by some interested folks. And I was invited to a meeting to hear a person from the state library talk about how we might really expand library service in the town. And I was interested, but kind of forgot about it. And later on, they came back to a few of us and asked us if we would undertake to get a library established. So we formed a little association and began to promote the idea in the town, and got the township committee to approve putting the idea for a referendum on the ballot, first time in 1961, and it failed. And the township committee said, don't worry about that, just come back next year and try again. And so we came back in 1962, and it failed again. So we sat back and licked our wounds for a little bit, and then over the next couple of years we got some information from other towns around and really put on an all-out campaign. And in 1965, in the general election, the referendum passed, establishing the library here, passed by 45 votes.
Every vote counts.
Right.
And then the Board of Trustees of the library was formed, is that right?
That's right.
And as I recall, you were the first president of that board.
I was appointed to the board and was made the president in 1966, and in 1967 was when the first library was opened, over in the basement of the municipal building.
Now maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Board of Trustees and how it's formed and what it does and what its function in the life of the library is.
Well, there are 5 members that are appointed by the mayor, and then there are 2 additional members, one appointed by it's actually the superintendent of schools and the mayor make up the 7 members, and then because of their heavy responsibilities, the mayor and the superintendent have normally appointed an alternate that stand in for them, but those alternates are then full-fledged members of the board and play an important role in governing the library. The board meets at least monthly, sometimes more than once a month, and is responsible for the policies that are carried out, is responsible for the big decisions as to the personnel, the director, the employment of the director, and the major matters that come up from time to time, like the decision to ask for help in building a building or something like that.
Now, I know that the Township Council each year approves an appropriation for the library, and but that's a lump sum appropriation. So what does the Board of Trustees then do with that?
The board must have approved a budget before it is even presented to the mayor and council for a decision as to what will be appropriated, and then after the appropriation is made, assuming that we get what we request, the board is responsible for seeing to it that the money is spent the way the budget has been planned and prepared.
Now, once appointed, the Board of Trustees really is separate from municipal government. Isn't that correct?
That's right. The Board of Trustees of the library is an entirely autonomous group, and must be responsible for the way the budget and any other monies that come to it are spent. And I would like to add right now that probably the principal reason for the whatever success this library has enjoyed is based on the continuous support that we have received from first the Township Committee, and since after the change of form of government, the mayor and council in subsequent years, and that support has made a very real difference in the kind of library service we've been able to provide.
And of course that support is really because I think all of us perceive that our community, the people who live in our community, have a real need for and desire for a very strong library. And I think that all of us are hopefully in an enlightened way reflecting that desire. And why don't we talk some about the use of the library, David? But before we do that, maybe you would give us about a minute or two of something about your background in the library world and so on.
I was just thinking when Jim mentioned that the referendum was successful in 1965 that I was just graduating from graduate school in library science at Columbia in that year and undertaking my first professional position with the Brooklyn Public Library. And I went from there rapidly out to Long Island, to a community very much like East Brunswick, Merrick, Long Island, where I became director in 1968 and served there for 4 years, and then spent a number of years in running library cooperatives, first on a county level in Connecticut, and then on an interstate level for the New England State Library Agencies. I came here almost 7 years ago and have been very happily ensconced as director since then, with a nice year out last year. Thank you.
Every time I see your reports about the activity in the library, I really find them mind-boggling in terms of usage and activity in this building, this facility. I know that numbers are boring, but maybe you could talk some about the usage that our library receives.
Well, you know, I'm very happy to talk about that. Our library has the highest per capita circulation. It is the number of items borrowed per person in the state of any community over 15,000 population.
And as I recall, last I looked, we were about 41st in population.
Well, according to the state's own estimates in 1984, we were 47th. We have the 4th total highest circulation in the state, even though we're 47th in population. We have the highest single building circulation in the state.
What does that mean?
All the 3 libraries that have higher circulation than us operate branches. I think the small one has 8 branches and as many as 15 branches for the other 2. And in terms of the use of the book stock that we do have, we have the highest circulation per item owned of any library in the state. So we have lots of big numbers like that, and we have other numbers that are interesting too. Although we have a very large budget, and I believe that the reason our budget is so good, among other reasons, is that we didn't have the history of a poor little old library to try to grow beyond in the 60s. The fact that the library was just established then at a time when the Great Society programs were taking hold, really gave rise to a different level of expectation on the part of the public. And we have grown so fast because of starting so late. But in terms of operating efficiency, with all those high numbers, in terms of the total cost per circulation, which is a gross measure just dividing circulation into budget, we stand, even with paying the cost of a video operation, which does not generate circulation. We stood in 1984 157th out of 311 municipal libraries, which was below the median in cost per circulation.
So that's saying that we're getting a lot more usage of the materials in the library for a lot less effort than 156 other libraries
That's
in the
right.
state. To go back to the numbers for a minute, how many card holders do we have in the library?
Among East Brunswick residents, we have 26,000 people who can walk in tomorrow and use their cards, and most of them did walk in this past Sunday, it seems. And then there are perhaps another 3,000 or 4,000 whose cards are not usable because they were reported lost, or they owe money on them, or something else like that. But it's, in terms of the number of people who would like to, who have taken out cards in the past 3 years, it's over 2/3 of the community.
Wow. I know that you've kept statistics on the number of people who come into this building each year.
Yes.
And I always find those very impressive. Or the number of entrances, it may not be different people, but the same people coming back, but it's
Well,
still a lot of volume.
There are a lot of people in here every day, and of course it doesn't matter whether they're the same people or not because they need to be served. But we did have 513,000 people in the library last year, and that is an increase from 5 years ago. Let's say the first full year we kept the numbers was 1980, and we had about 360,000 in that year. So it's been quite an increase over the last 5 years. What's interesting is the shift in use. And it's interesting to us because it's becoming increasingly difficult to cope with. But we are doing now 1/3 of our business on Saturdays and Sundays, when we're open 11 hours out of the 67 we're open during the week. Or to put it graphically, we're open 16% of the time on the weekends, and we're doing about 32% of our business on the weekends. We're open 7 hours on Saturday and 4 on Sunday, and it's a madhouse here, and it's been growing quite a bit. Just this year, the last 2 months, the rate of growth in those 2 days is 4 times the annual rate of growth for those 2 days in each of the preceding 4 years. So we're seeing a sudden shift, and we have to keep on top of it. It's becoming increasingly difficult for staff to cope with the volumes of people here.
I know I come to the municipal building sometimes on Sunday afternoon around the time the library is opening and see people waiting in line to get in, which I just think is marvelous that the building is so popular, even though it does place a tremendous demand on the staff. But made me wonder a few times what was going on in here that people would line up in the cold on a Sunday afternoon waiting to get in. I know that crowding has been a problem, and I know that there are people who have some flexibility in when they come. When is the best time to come to the library in terms of the volume of people and activity?
Well, certainly the weekends, which are the favorite time to come, are not the best time to come because there are so many people, and there's just not enough seating. There's hardly enough space to walk around, and there's certainly barely enough parking. But our quietest day, in terms of number of people per hour, is Wednesday, followed by Thursday and Friday. And the busiest days are Sunday, Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday in that order.
Okay, I want to come back and talk some more about specifics in the library, but I'd now like to ask Gail. I know a lot of us like to think that we're friends of the library. but I know that the Friends are a particular organization, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about what they do.
Well, first of all, the Friends of the Library are local people who feel that our library is a very special place and have chosen to band together to help support the library in any way that we can. In the library itself, I'd like to feel that we play many different roles. Probably an important role we play is to stimulate public support for our library, and also just to make the residents of East Brunswick aware of what the library has to offer. We also play a financial role in the library. Throughout the year, we are constantly raising funds, and all the funds that we raise go directly into library programs. Some of the areas that we underwrite the costs for are a lot of the special programs that the library runs. Probably the most popular is the Teen Library Corps, along with the family feature film series. Just recently we had a Star Wars weekend in which we ran 3 of the Star Wars movies continuously, and we had over 600 people in attendance watching them. We also sponsor the Artist in Residence program. We also have been asked throughout the years to provide initial funding for new services or new collections that the library would like to offer residents. Our most recent purchase has been the compact disc, and throughout the years we've also provided the computer software and the rental books, and I guess the most important is the video cassettes. We also provide large funding for larger equipment. I guess the one that I'm most proud of is the equipment that we purchased for the reference department to provide the database searching that they now can offer to the residents. We've also provided the Apple IIe computers for public use, the new shelvings, the signage, furnishings in the children's department, and the list goes on and on. Not only do we do financial, but we also run special programs throughout the year that are beneficial to the people of East Brunswick. Probably the most popular is our annual used book sale, which we run annually, and it's held at East Brunswick Square Mall. And this year it's the 7th through the 13th of April. Not only is it our major fundraiser, but we also like to feel that it's a time when people can become involved. It has become a community event, and it's a time when all our members can be involved, whether they donate time to help run the book sale or they just come down and buy books. And as David has often said, that has become one of the greatest recycling efforts in East Brunswick, because thousands of books every year, instead of being thrown out, are passed on to other people to enjoy. Another area that's indirectly linked to the library, and it's the only area where funding does not go directly to the library, is literacy training. We feel very strongly that there's a need for such a program, and we do provide funding to the literacy volunteers of Middlesex County. And lastly, I would like to say that there's also a very special relationship between the Friends and the staff and the trustees and the administration. And every year money is set aside for them to attend professional conferences and workshops. And I guess in a nutshell you can say, you've given us a beautiful library. We like to feel that we provide the frills that make our library different.
Let me ask 2 or 3 questions about that, and that's, I think, a very eloquent statement of what the Friends are about, best I've heard anyway. Most important question, how does one become a member of the Friends?
Well, very easily. You can come by the library at any time. We have membership applications out on the circulation desk. If you call the library, I'm sure they would either give you my name or direct you right here. All you do is fill out your little membership application. We have many different categories, starting with a $5 membership, and it runs up to a $100 membership. You can just donate your money, or if you feel you'd like to become active, there's a little box that you can check off, and I guarantee you that we get to all those people and get them involved in some aspect of it.
Do you have regular meetings?
We have our executive board meets about every 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 general membership meetings that everybody's invited to attend. There's one in the fall, and there'll be one coming up now in June.
How many members are in the Friends now?
Well, as of right now, we have about 1,100 members. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping in the spring to get out to the new condominiums that have been being built in East Brunswick, and I hope by the end of the year somewhere between 1,500, which will be quite a large number.
And how many books do you have at the used book sale every year?
Oh,
Approximately.
It's hard to
we
say.
think about 40,000.
40,000
Yes.
books. And are there some good things in there?
Oh,
or
there's
is it all
always good
junk?
things. I always like when the dealers come and the first night, and they run up and they'll purchase a book, and then they'll say, "Do you know how much this book is worth?" And you know, we might have it priced at $3, and they tell us it's this rare book or a first edition, and you know, they'll sell it for $50. But it's the finds, it's the rare books that just makes it exciting.
All right, David, come back to the question of card holders for a minute, and then I want to get on to some library programs and so on. I know that we talked about the number of card holders that you mentioned, a number of East Brunswick residents. Over the years, I know it's been somewhat controversial that non-East Brunswick residents have been able to obtain library cards in East Brunswick. And I know that there's been an evolution of that policy, and maybe you could tell us currently where we stand on that and what the current policy is.
I'd be happy to. I'd like to preface my remarks by saying in the early years of this library, our residents were great users of New Brunswick and some other libraries. And they appreciated very much the opportunity to be able to borrow freely from New Brunswick. And the tide really started to turn in 1976 when East Brunswick was named Area Library and started receiving state funding that New Brunswick had gotten on a provisional basis for the previous 3 years. And when, of course, we moved into the new building, it became an immediate attraction, as new buildings are. And we worked up through 1982 to the point where we were lending about 50,000 books a year to non-residents. And we decided that the area funding that we had gotten from the state was no longer sufficient to justify that level. So we and New Brunswick at the same time, for somewhat different reasons, withdrew from a 12-library agreement that we had been involved in, I guess, since 1968 was when it started, and negotiated separate agreements with 6 other libraries. 3 of them our residents like to use, so we maintain free and open relations with those 3. The other 3 wanted their residents to have access to our facilities, so they pay us for that privilege. And then we began selling, starting in 1983, non-resident cards to those who had been disenfranchised who now want to use the library. So we now have that mix of honoring cards from other libraries and selling non-resident cards. And we are getting certainly more income out of it than we got previously. And we seem to be at a stable situation. But the board has been looking very carefully at the implications of crowding that I mentioned earlier on our ability to control the quality of services that we can offer. So although I personally and the library institutionally have been champions of the concept of open borrowing, we now find ourselves in the situation where we have to draw back from an extreme position of free to everyone or open to everyone, and look first at the need to control the traffic in the library and to have some influence on the parking situation so that we don't overwhelm our staff and so that we do not shut out our own residents from being able to use the services and the materials that we offer.
What does it cost to get a non-resident card?
We have 3 levels of cards. To borrow books only, it costs $30 a year. To add video cassettes to that adds another $25, and for full services, which would add children's programs, the total cost would come to $60 a year. We will be reviewing that at the end of this year to make sure that that figure reflects the actual equivalent tax value of those services to our residents.
And so how is the fee set? The $60, how did you
Well,
arrive
we
at
set
that
it
number?
several years ago because at that time that was the tax cost per residence of library service. But it probably included a number of things which non-residents can make no use of, for example, watching this program. So we have to allocate the costs a little differently when we look at it next year.
Now, let's turn to the library's programs for a few minutes. When I was a young man in junior high and early high school. I have to confess that instead of hanging out at the corner drugstore, I hung out in the local library. But our library was quite different from this. It only had books and I think a few records, as I remember. And the vision and functioning of the library as more than a place to house books, I guess, is fairly recent and contemporary.
Yes, and I think that we're somewhat in the leadership role in this area. Although our book circulation has increased every year, we aren't just books anymore. 5 years ago, our audiovisual circulation was 10% of our total, and this year it's about 20%. We started video cassette service 6 years ago, and now it's probably the most popular service in terms of the number of residents who use it each year of any single service that we offer. We're starting with compact discs, as Gail mentioned before, this year. We can see very clearly that compact discs will overtake and put out of business the 33 RPM record business within 5 to 10 years. Certainly from the institutional point of view, they're much better to circulate because they do not sustain the kind of damage that discs do, regular discs do. And film service, which was very important for a number of years, starting in 1976, is now receding into the background. 16mm films are just not being made anymore the way they used to be. Even the producers are turning to video cassette. Compact disc format, while we're just looking at it now for entertainment, is the medium for information storage and retrieval of the very near future. We will, within a year, have compact disk drives attached to some of our microcomputers to manipulate databases both for internal processing and as an addition to and perhaps an alternate to some of the online over telephone communication with distant databases in other states. So we're very much aware of media. We look at the market a great deal. We look at the consumer market. Those of us involved go around to the stores, the consumer electronics stores in East Brunswick, and watch what people are doing. When we saw one chain this winter put its 33s in the rear and bring its compact discs in the front, we knew the time had come.
Maybe you could give us an overview of the programs of the library. We've kind of jumped around a little bit. Maybe you can do it a little more systematically. I didn't mean to ask you such a tough question.
No, if I just make sure I interpret program correctly.
Well, the various areas.
The various service areas. The most public area is circulation, of course, the home borrowing of books, records, video cassettes, and the like. And that does occupy a lot of staff time. Probably the most valuable area for residents is reference service and children's services. The reference service provides answers, provides a collection of materials that people would not be able to accumulate for themselves, and access to those materials by trained staff. We answered some 65,000 reference questions last year, which is 1.5 per resident, if you will. The children's area offers programming for children as young as 6 months, although they don't come alone, up to 6th grade. We worked backwards from the traditional 3-year-old story hours in the last 5 years, went back first to 2 years and then to 18 months and then worked back to 6 months. Some of the programs that were started by our staff were pioneering programs. The idea is reading readiness, that infants and those of us who remember dealing with our children when they were very young, infants can relate to books at a very young age. And so what we do with a program like that, which sounds startling, is to train parents on how to use books with a very young infant.
Pretty soon you'll get born, have your Social Security number and a library card.
Well, you have to be able to print first, but we understand that some of the experiments with reading to children before they're born have borne fruits afterwards, and maybe we'll be having some geniuses.
So what are the other kinds of things the library does?
Well, the media services area, as I noted, when we first started with video cassettes, we provided an area where people could borrow a video cassette and go and watch it, because back in the early 80s, not that many people owned video cassette machines. Now we have perhaps 50% of the community as registered videocassette borrowers. And we still run large film programs, feature film programs for children and for families, and we, through the Friends, co-sponsor the foreign film series with Playhouse 22. We don't do much in the area of live adult programs in the library. We found over the years there just isn't too much of an audience for that. Cable has taken over.
Authors and
Authors.
that sort of thing.
We do a little bit, but cable television, as it has grown in East Brunswick and almost nowhere else in the state, has really taken over for adult programming in the community. And the program series that we have on Cable Channel 8 reach many more people than the live programs would in this library or any other library.
Speaking of Channel 8, why don't you talk a little bit about its role in the library?
Well,
how it
Channel 8
functions?
is very special to me, and I suspect to you as well. In 1976, when the library opened, there was a municipal access capability the township had. It had some equipment from the predecessor to Star Communications, but there wasn't any program or budget. And under your leadership, this was placed in the library, and equipment was purchased through federal funds, and funding for staff was provided the same way. We went 5 years, from 76 through 81, with 2 forms of federal funding. First, a Library Act, and then the second was through CETA. And then in 1981, we did propose to the mayor and the council that the program be funded through municipal taxes. And that was approved, and it was a little bit difficult getting over the hump of that to get that started. And it's been approved every year since. We've done 3 community-wide surveys for the council since then. We have attempted to find similar surveys around the country to compare ours to, and have found that we're the only library in the country doing a systematic audience survey of municipal cable. We can't do Nielsen ratings. We don't really have that level of sophistication to express a Nielsen share. We can only talk in terms of the proportion of the community that is likely to watch a particular program series. And it is quite high. It's quite a bit higher than Nielsen ratings, which doesn't necessarily mean that people are all watching it at any particular time. It just means there's familiarity with these program series and interest in watching more.
Jim, this is a pretty broad program the library has from its start in 1967. How does the Board of Trustees keep up with all of this?
It isn't easy. The thing that we try to do is to listen and observe with an open mind the ideas that come to us, whether they're primarily come up through the staff, but also many come from the citizens and from others. And those ideas that sound like they have potential, we give encouragement to and commit dollars to, and it has, and with, as Gail has pointed out, the points of the pioneering work that the Friends have done, we've been able to start many things that, well, many other places just haven't gotten around to trying.
Do any of the things that get started ever get dropped?
Oh, yes. There have been a number of programs. I can think right away of when we first started, we had quite a collection of 8mm film. A lot of people had 8mm home film, home cameras. They took their own, and I guess there may be a few around that still do, but I think 8mm is almost a thing of the past, isn't it, in the library?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
And there have been other things. When a service has outlived its usefulness, we scratch it.
Gail, how does the Friends organization decide when to put seed money into something and when not to?
Well, Sharon is the library liaison between the Friends and
That's
the
Sharon Carmazin.
and the Board of Trustees. And Sharon sits in on all our executive board meetings. She will bring the idea to the board and gives us quite a talk about it, the goods, the bads, why it's needed. And then the Friends vote on whether to provide the funding. I really cannot remember any time when we had said no to the board. The one thing that I have been impressed since being president, I sit in on the Board of Trustees, and I go out with the feeling that when we are asked to do something, it's something that really needs to be done and cannot be funded any other way. And I don't feel as if at any time we are asked to do something that can be done through the taxes. And so we're always willing to help.
Jim, speaking of Board of Trustees meetings, are those meetings public?
They are public meetings, and Gail is, or the president of the Friends, has been our primary public, but from time to time we've had others come, especially if there's some concern being expressed in the community. But I should add to your earlier question, we found over the past 2 or 3 years that because of the volume of business that we have to give consideration to, that one meeting a month, sometimes till 11 or 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, is not enough, and so frequently we've had agenda meetings and in addition to our regular meeting.
When your schedule permits it, and you don't have to have extra meetings, what's your normal meeting night, and where do you meet?
It's the third Thursday of the month, and we meet in the director's room here in the library, usually at 8 o'clock.
Now, David, I know sometimes it seems that this building and program and the things and people in it are too popular. And you mentioned earlier parking and crowding in the building itself. Maybe you'd like to say some more about that at this point.
Yes. I've been concerned about parking, first of all, for 5 years, because I felt that the projections that were done in the planning proposal that led to the senior center, but no further development, did not accurately reflect what would happen in terms of growth in library use. And I'm sorry to say that I think I was correct. However, what's interesting is not during the week, when the municipal building is also in full use, is where the problem is. The problem is on Saturday and Sunday when the municipal building is closed. And particularly on Sunday, now the senior center is open on Sunday. Because I'm very concerned about this, and I didn't want to lose the seasonal aspect of it, because there is a calendar pressure, particularly during the academic year. I did have some footage taken on Sunday, March 9th, of the parking lot situation and of the interior library situation. And I thought you would like to see, as I wanted to see myself, and perhaps the public would like to see, what it actually looks like here on a busy Sunday.
All right, I think we should look at that videotape now, and when we come after we've looked at it, maybe we can talk a little bit about what some of the solutions are.
Right. What we have here is footage of, first, of the parking lots shot from the library roof on Sunday, March 9th, which was, by coincidence, the busiest Sunday we've had in our history. We didn't know that when we started, when I asked that this be shot. This is between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. Here you see public lot number 1, which holds 84 cars plus 7 handicap spaces. And you're seeing a circulation pattern. Most of the people have already been here since 1 o'clock, but people are leaving and people are taking their place. And we thought it would be slightly dramatic to show what happens after that car pulls out, the next one pulls in. And if you watch from stage left and now from stage right, you get the flavor of the traffic in that lot. This is one of 3 public lots in the municipal complex, excluding the police lot, which is used all the time for police vehicles and police staff. You're having a pan out now to Civic Center Drive. Certainly some of the cars along the drive are people visiting in the apartments nearby, but most of these are library users who could not find space in Lot 1, which has 84 spaces, or Lot 2, which has 68 spaces. Lot number 3 we couldn't get footage of from this vantage point. That has another 80-something spaces. And with the lighting situation, the construction situation is not presently being used too heavily. This is lot number 2, which is shared with the senior center. As you know, the senior center started Sunday programming in December, so it now is having some use as well. Now we're coming into the library and showing you what it looks like in mid-afternoon on a Sunday afternoon. This is a lineup of people at the circulation department, an idea of the crowding. We have seating space for 230 people in the library if every seat is taken. We had, on average, Sunday, 478 people an hour in the library. So you can see that there isn't enough room for everybody to sit. Certainly not that everybody would at once, but there were more than twice as many people as there were seats on Sunday. And this is, they're using all services. None of this is stage managed. This is just people using the library. And this is a shot into the reference room showing the use of microfilm machines and the microfiche periodical indexes now. The reference room is most heavily used on Sundays. Here's the seating area in the reference room. And people are doing assignments and homework. Now we're in the children's room with 3 of the nice chairs that were provided by the Friends this year. We don't see this number of kids in the library generally at any time during the week. Again, Sunday is a family day, and we have whole families. Here are our new paperback racks the Friends bought for us last year, and the center seating area, which we kept, which is wearing out, and which I'm sure if we tripled the number of seating there, we still couldn't provide enough seating for the people who just like to sit and read magazines. This is the back seating area in the adult stack area, where there's, again, seating for another 36 people. And finally, a shot back again from the Media Services Department down to the end of the library.
Well, that was certainly a graphic picture of a busy library on a Sunday afternoon. Let's talk about the building first. And I know from time to time I've heard rumors that the library board was going to propose an expansion, or they were going to do an expansion, or something. Where are we with that, and you know, when is that likely to come on the agenda?
Part of our planning process for this fiscal year is to reach a decision, we hope by the fall, on whether an addition is warranted. And taking documentary footage like this is a dramatic aspect of that planning, but that's not the whole thing. We are also going to be looking at the population projections for the town. We hope to engage a sociologist to try to take the demographic characteristics of the community and run it against some social science surveys that have been done, which are predictors of library use, to try to give us some projections of levels of library use over the next 20 years. Of course, we're also concerned about parking. We'll get to that in a minute. But from this information and from looking at the growth trends as we have them, especially looking at the trends in school enrollment, because there has been a dramatic change in the characteristics of library use over the last 5 to 10 years because of declining school enrollment. We want to reach a decision on what kind of space is needed in the future, if it is needed, whether added space makes any sense in view of the parking constraints, but if it does make sense, where it should go, which will involve an architect and probably a structural engineer. We have to first determine whether there is any merit in looking at a second story or mezzanine in the present building, although we know that no engineering provisions were made for that when it was built. It was not designed to be a 2-story building. But in any event, we have to look at all the alternatives and then come up with a proposal and what we hope would be an accurate funding cost if we are proposing an addition. And that would be brought to the mayor and council at a later date for action for funding. We have put it into the capital improvement program for the township for 1987. And I do hope that we will be ready with an informed decision so that the council can reach a vote on it within the context of the 1987 budget.
Well, even assuming, I'll say if there were an expansion of the building, and even if it didn't attract any more people, there's an existing parking problem. And have you, in the planning process, thought through what might be done to accommodate that?
Part of the parking problem is the remoteness of Lot 3 and the problems we've had with lighting over the last several years, which will be solved within the next few weeks as the lighting contract has been let, and we're just waiting for spring thaw, we being the township. I think that when lighting is improved and signage is improved, that people will use the remote lot more. But there are still times during the week when court is in session when you cannot find a parking space here at 10 o'clock. In addition to the Sunday situation that I mentioned, there is a plan to add 36 spaces on the other side of the Senior Citizen Center along with Lot 3. I feel that for the future expansion of that center as well as the library, that more spaces should be added than 36. But there's no real space around the library for parking. The library was placed in the corner it was placed in for very good reasons, and nobody could have possibly thought back in 1973 when the new building was approved that it would all lead to this. So we do have that constraint. Certainly the township has, or the staff has looked at a parking deck and rejected that in the past because of groundwater problems, not to mention the aesthetics. I'm sure that that's not something we want to do. But even if we don't add parking, more than 36 spaces, there are just too many people in the library. It's too uncomfortable. There's just not enough room to move around. There's not enough seating at the peak periods. Now, that is just 1 day or 2 days out of the week, but those are the 2 days that people prefer to use the library. We did a survey last year on expanding hours to see what people were interested in. And the first choice was adding Friday nights, which we haven't had since we moved from the old building where we had Fridays but not Sundays to the new building where we added Sundays and cut Friday nights. The second choice was Sunday 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock to expand that. The third choice was adding another hour at the end of Sunday, or even 3 hours. I think in the best of possible worlds, from the public's point of view, they would like to see the library open to 9 o'clock on Friday nights and from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sundays. This concept might reduce the crowding sufficiently so that the parking wouldn't be a problem, or even the building might be sufficient. Of course, there are operating cost implications there which we have to figure out. We're operating very economically now on Sundays, and I think that the 4-hour schedule is the reason for that. If we had to go to a 9-hour schedule, it would really change the situation. So it requires a lot of different parts of the equation to be put together to determine the best mix.
And when do you expect some decision on whether or not the schedule is going to be changed?
We have to make that within the context of the budget because we don't have the funds to even experiment. We could ask the Friends, I suppose, to help us experiment by throwing in some money, but that's not the thing that we want to do for a few months and then have to cut back for a few more months until the budget process is started. So I would expect that if we decide that expansion of Sunday hours is appropriate, we will schedule it to happen when the 1987 budget is adopted, which would mean in the spring of 1987.
A year from now?
Yes.
Jim, we've talked a lot about our library and its activities, and I know that we're not the only library around here. Excuse me. Maybe could you tell us some of the ways that the board and individual members of the board participate in with other libraries?
Well, we have developed here in the county what's now called the Libraries of Middlesex, which is an association of both the directors and representatives of the boards of trustees of now some 23, 24 libraries in Middlesex County. That association has provided for a lot of cooperation and really has helped to pave the way and set the tone for the state legislation which the governor signed into action last year, and which established the idea of regional library cooperatives. Our region includes not only Middlesex County, but Union County north of us, and the libraries in the two counties are voluntarily now joined, many of them, into this cooperative, which receives state funding, and in 1987 the regional library cooperative will receive all of the funding that formerly went into each of the area reference libraries, so that all of the services which were provided by the area reference libraries will now be provided on a contract basis by those libraries that have the capacity and the desire to offer and provide those services.
Does that mean that the funding which this library in the township has received from the state for area library services will change?
Yes, it will. We will, after '87, and this is true throughout the state, where there were
26
26 area libraries. All of that funding, because of this change, will now go into the 6 regions, and will then be, the services will be contracted. Now, another aspect of this that is of interest to many people is that the cooperatives are multi-type libraries, and not only the public libraries, but the school libraries, the academic libraries, the special libraries, and the institutional libraries are all eligible to be part of the cooperative. And our cooperative has now virtually all of the public libraries, almost all of the academic libraries, and most of the school systems, and the special libraries are permitted. The special libraries in industry and in the corporation and so forth.
Oh, that is quite a bit of power together there.
It is, and the reason for it is because this kind of cooperation has been developing in various parts of the country, and the New Jersey State Library gave leadership, and the State Library Association, to the legislation which radically changed the way in which many of these services would be provided.
Gail, is there any equivalent organization for Friends of Libraries?
There is a national board or group, but there's no state that I know of. Each individual library seems to have their own groups, but we don't meet statewide.
Now, David, I know, we really are very proud of this library, and I know that there are people who think or who would say that this is a premier public library in our whole state, maybe in the Northeast. I'm wondering if we ever have visitors, or does anybody ever come around to see what's going on here, or what's being done right in the library community?
Well, first of all, lots of people who live here tell us that they bring friends and relatives and other visitors to the library to show it to them when they come visit in town. It's the one thing they want to show off. We have people meeting here from around this state all the time, not just because it's East Brunswick, but primarily because it's at Exit 9 and it's central, very central. And we have the large meeting room. And we have other meetings of non-library meetings, statewide water resources or Department of Environmental Protection. You know, the Turnpike Authority showed its plans for the expansion here. This was the only library that was shown, and they were in municipal buildings elsewhere. And we have people coming from library schools. Dalhousie used to send down a class every other year to visit a number of libraries, and this was one of them. Rutgers brings students over here. And various people come from around the country for various reasons, or write to us or call us, having seen information that Sharon has placed in some of the national publications. We would like, when we have the American Library Association meeting this spring, we might offer a tour down here of the video studio, which is the singular attraction I think we have that's unparalleled in any other library of our size in the country, at least as far as I know. We'd like them to see this operation, and maybe we always find that when you go to other very good libraries or they come here, everybody gets ideas. Even if they don't like something that's being done, you learn something from visiting other places.
That has its good points and its bad points. I never will forget, a man came to a council meeting one night of 2 or 3 years ago and complained that our tax money was being wasted because whenever he went in the library parking lot, he frequently saw cars from New York and Connecticut and so on, and these people are coming all the way down here to use our library. But I knew, and you know, that there were people, generally professional library people, coming to see how this library functions and what happens here. Somebody whispered to me that the library board trustees actually meets on Wednesday evening.
That's right.
Third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday is the date. The regional cooperative board meets on the third Thursday, and that's
okay.
why I got him.
So,
Jim was appointed as one of 2 lay representatives to the regional cooperative board by the state librarian, and he's serving as treasurer.
excellent, excellent. Well, that concludes this program about the library. We could stay here much longer. There's a lot to tell. I know that everybody who uses it is proud of it, and it is another one of those things that makes East Brunswick a good place to be and to live. So thank you all for being with me tonight, and until next time on About East Brunswick, I'm Bill Fox.